Alright, so good to be back. In this video, we're going to look at shapes in Pygame, and so we're going to start off with the rectangle. Before we do that, let me run this and show you where we left off. In our previous tutorial, we looked at colors in Pygame, and so we're playing with the fill color of our display surface. So I'm going to close this. I want to change that background color into a black color, so I'm going to create a color 4 here. I'm using this convention, color 1, color 2, color 3, color 4. But of course, if you want to be specific, you could just name this black, and 0, 0, 0, you're going to be a black color. So if I come down here and replace this with black, save that and run this, you can see now this is a black color. Okay, so creating rectangles. In Pygame, when you're creating rectangles, you could use a two-step process or just a one-step process. But I recommend that we use a two-step process. So when you're using a two-step process, you have to create a rectangle object. You have to create a rectangle object first, and then the second step is you're going to draw the object on the screen. So how do you create a rectangle object? And so I'm going to take you to the documentation and show you on rect. This is the module that we're targeting. So I'll click on rect. You will see here it says pygame.rect. Notice this R is capitalized. Pygame object for storing rectangular coordinates. So we need that. The rect function is over here. It's going to take in these arguments: left, top, width, and height. How do we know what is left, what is top? Perhaps we might know the width and the height. Of course, this is the width and the height of the rectangle object. So I'm going to take you to Paint and show you how the coordinate system works in Pygame so that you can understand. And so let's say this is our screen, this is our display surface. This display surface, this is the one that we are talking about here. I want to show you how the coordinate system works. So in Pygame, this top left corner is going to be 0.00. This is where everything begins. So the moment we move to the right, X is going to increase. The moment we move down, Y is going to increase. So this is the X coordinate, this is the Y coordinate. So every point on this screen over here is going to be represented by some value of X and Y. All right, so when you draw a rectangle, you need to be sure about two things. The first thing is you need to be sure about the position of the rectangle that you're trying to draw. The second one is you need to be sure about the size. So if you look closely, the left and the top represent the position, the width and the height represent the size. And so, how did they come out with left and top? So, it's just the position of the rectangle from the top and from the left side. So, let's say you want to draw a rectangle over here. What is the distance from the top of this corner, which is your top left corner? And what is the distance from the left side? You can break it down to X and Y, obviously. And so, what's the distance from the left and what's the distance from the top? And that's where you're going to draw your rectangle. It's going to determine the position of your rectangle, obviously. And so we can implement this. So in here, pygame.rect, notice the capital R. And then in here, we need the left. So the distance from the left, we want to say, let's say 200. Our window is 480 by 640, so 200 is okay, and 250 from the top. And then the width and the height, let me say 280. 200 is going to be the width and 80 is going to be the height. So now we have our rectangle object. So I can say this is our first step. First step is create a rectangle object. The second step, inside the game loop, you want to draw this rectangle object. And so I'm going to take you again back to the documentation. So to draw in Pygame, you have to go to the draw module. So I'm going to click over here. So for us to draw a rectangle here, you can see draw a rectangle. We need to use this method, pygame.draw.rect. Click on that. You can see what is required. So this first method is what we're looking at. These are the required arguments that we need to pass. We need to pass in the surface. This is where we are going to draw the color of the rectangle that you are intending to draw, and then the rect object. Of course, we already have these three arguments, so let me take you back and show you these three arguments. Of course, we have a color, we have the surface we want to draw, we also have the rect object. This rectangle object, we're going to give it a a variable name so that we can reference it later on. So in here, what we want to do is we want to draw. So we can say pygame dot draw dot rect, just like that, because we are drawing a rectangle. So we need the surface first. Surface is game underscore screen. That's the name of our surface. If you're not sure, you can come up here and check it. The next one is the color. What color do we need to give this? Let me say color 3. Color 3. And then the next one is going to be the rect object. This is the rect object which we created up here. So I'm going to say rect 1. That's the name of our rectangle object. If I save this and if I run, you would see we have a blue rectangle over here on our screen. And so that's how you create a rectangle object. Yeah, so there are 2 steps that we took: create a rectangle object and then draw the rectangle object. And so here you can comment. We can also have additional arguments in here. Those are optional arguments. So let's go back. Here you can see the first one is width, the next one is border radius. And then we can have top left or top right. This is the border radius. You can choose to have border radius for just one side, and so this is what we have down here. So with the width, if it's set to 0 like we have here, you can see that our shape is solid. The shape has got a fill color. You can pass in a number. The width is supposed to be an integer, so you can pass in an integer greater than 0. If you pass in, let's say 5, it's going to be the thickness of the stroke. So if I save this and run again, you can see now we have a stroke rectangle. And so this value is going to determine the thickness of the stroke. If you set it to 0, then it's going to fill the rectangle. The next argument, the border radius. The border radius is going to determine how circular the corners are going to be. Currently, we have 90 degrees, angles, right, for the shape. If you look closely, this is a right angle corner, right? Right angle, right angle, right angle. And so if you want to change that, then you can pass in a value here. It's also going to be an integer. Let me first pass in 10 and see what happens. So you can experiment with this value. You can see the corners already are starting to get circular. So that's how you can make those corners circular. But if you put it at 0, then obviously nothing is going to change. You can see we have sharp corners, 90-degree corners. However, you can target also just one corner. So it's going to start from top left and then top right and then bottom left and then bottom right. So this first one you need to pass in a 0 so that it knows you're not affecting another corner. And then once you pass in that argument, the third argument on the optional arguments, then it knows that you are targeting the top left corner. So I can pass in 15 and let you see what happens. So if we run this, you can see only one corner has been affected. This is the top left corner. If I add another one, it means top right. If I add another one, it means bottom left, and then another one means bottom right. That's what it simply means. So yeah, so this is how it works. And then last but not least, we said we could use just one step to create a rectangle. So instead of creating a rectangle object here, I'm going to comment this out. Control / comment this out, and I'm going to copy this. Control C. And instead of putting this here, I will just Control V. Yeah, so I will just write pygame.rect, and then that's it. So if I save this and run this, you can see it's working. However, this has got limitations. You shall find out later on what limitation this does have. And so you should use, so I'm going to undo this and undo that. Okay, so we can go back to where we started. And so you'd rather use these 2 steps. Create a rect object and then draw the rect object. And so any questions, leave them in the comment section. Remember to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in our next tutorial. For now, I'm out. Bye bye.